Ok, siamo qui con Imar Perretta. We saw your movie, and the first things I want to ask you is about history. What happened really when the police stop? Well, no, not what happened really, but why this moment is so crucial for the movie and the friendness stop?
It's crucial because in moments like that, so the first thing to say is that communities like the ones that I grew up in are always in one way or another in conflict with the police. And one of those reasons is because people feel like they're being watched, and they feel like um, they're being suspected as being criminals or deviants. And so what happens is there's a antagonistic relationship to the police, and there's a fear. And what then happens is in the community there's a culture of standing up to them. So the idea that you would run away and leave your best friend, your brother, to suffer state violence on their own is the type of thing that can break up a friendship. And so for me, this is something that happened to me in real life. So for me, that moment felt like a real loss of innocence for both of those boys, both of our protagonists, but it also felt like their friendship couldn't go on after that. And so it's a reckoning for both of them. And I think that's why it feels like such an important thing to show people. This is happening to boys every day.
Because people don't recognize police as something that protect them, but maybe
Exactly.
they hunt them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
But you think it's more for second generation of immigrants more than uh, British people, for example, or
Mhm.
is general?
Well, I think there's police presence in working class communities has been something that's happened in the UK since time began. The policing of communities that are not, uh, the what's the word, the kind of the ruling class, the bourgeoisie. That's been a tool of oppression for since before any waves of migration to the UK. But what you find now in a world post 9/11 and in a world post the war on terror, the communities that are most surveilled have changed over the years. And what you find since 9/11 is that Muslim communities have been very, very heavily watched over by the police. And so it creates an environment of suspicion, and that's not good for community cohesion, you
Yeah,
know?
it's an Islamophobia is
Exactly,
growing up. Absolutely, we should admit it's going
exactly.
like that. And we only understand Marani is from Palestine. Just 1 second, but Palestine is very present in the movie. You know,
Yes.
you listen, you hear the radio,
Hmm.
and it gives tension, but you made it in a very delicate and precise, accurate way. And if you want to tell me something, not exactly about Palestine, but if you want, you're very welcome.
Yeah,
But
sure.
generally, about the way you put the Palestine presence.
Well, what I wanted to show was how the boys that there are all these forces, these antagonistic forces around them. There are all these things that are causing them to question who they are and how the world sees them. And Maram being Palestinian makes his relationship to the genocide much more specific. But actually, outside of his relationship to it, as a community, they have a very direct relationship because it shows on the world stage that certain communities or certain lives are worth more than others. And seeing that every day on the radio, on the TV, it can't help but change the way that you think about yourself. And that is such a disruptive intervention into a young person's life. Not just to see images that are so severe, and but also to understand that all of the adults in the world are choosing to do nothing about it. And for me, it felt really important to show that all the news around the genocide is just in the air around them. It's just ever present. So even though it feels like something that's happening far away, and certainly for Maram, it'll feel much closer. Um, just as we receive that news 24 hours a day with no break, those boys are seeing that. They're seeing exactly the same images, hearing the same sounds as we are. You can only imagine what it does to them, the effect that it has on them and to their sense of self. So for me, it was really important to show them receiving it as we receive it, which is that it's just in the air.
And you transmit it perfectly because
Thank you.
you feel. I feel it. I mean, if it not affected it the same way, but I felt this tension and this
Mm,
pressure only when it comes for 10 seconds from the radio or when people comes, and then the mix of the sufferance because the loss of the mother.
yeah,
So uh, it's a mix of general and personal story. No,
that's it. Yeah,
that's what I want to ask you something about. How do you mix
yeah.
these feelings?
Well, I
And the
think,
father,
yeah, right.
which is my favorite, is fantastic. He's
Oh,
so
thank you.
free. He's so sweet with his son.
Beautiful, isn't
He
it?
understands.
Yeah. Well, I think, for me, political cinema is only interesting. Political cinema is only interesting to me if really what it's describing is the intimate lives of the characters.
Mhm.
If it's just about the geopolitical, we can read about that on the
Sure.
news.
It,
I
it
think
won't be universal.
right. So I think the function of political cinema is not just to speak outwardly to these geopolitical weather fronts that we encounter. These clouds above us, right? Really, the aim of political cinema should be to describe, portray in a sensitive and nuanced way how those big things that surround us affect our intimate lives on the smallest level. So, for anything from the breakup of a friendship, a police stop and search, to encountering these news reports every day. And actually, the fact that both of those things can have a really profound effect on a young person's life and on their relationships. So that for me that should be the aim of political filmmaking, is the intimate lives of its characters and the geopolitical situation within which they exist.
And the small country out of the city, there was the wars of the two friends before they break the friendness. It's something happened to you to have like this paradise near to the city. It's
Yeah.
personal, or you just invented for the movie.
I mean, every kid runs to the forest.
Yeah.
This is like, if you have the opportunity, you run to the forest, because I think the city has its dangers, especially for those boys. So the forest for them is where they can be free, is where they can be away from the pressures of the adult world. And so I think that's common to all teenagers, right? It's common to all kids. You want to find a space of imagination, of play, where you can be a kid and not have to worry about becoming an adult too soon. And so, I feel like that's a really universal thing. And certainly that was true for me. The minute I was old enough to go out of the house on my own, where did I go? I went to the forest, you know?
You personally film with the camera close to you, or because I have a two technical question.
Sure.
One is about the way you film,
Hmm.
because for example the scene in the swimming pool for me is fantastic because you give us the tension of someone that's afraid something is happening. No, because
Yes.
it's floating on the surface of the water, and then he goes a little bit down, and you feel the breath is going, and then the music,
Mm.
because you compose the music.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
saw all the sound is about is from you. So how you mix the camera use and the music to give tension, to bring this tension to the film.
Yeah. Well, I think that there was like a really, you kind of look at the action, and you find the soul of the scene, and then you decide how you need to follow it. Sometimes it's handheld, sometimes the language of the camera is much more still, or the movements are more classical and linear. It's all about the soul of the scene. And so, to use the swimming pool as an example, that needed to be kinetic. We needed to move with the boys. We needed to feel the jeopardy, the urgency, the danger, um, of that whole environment. So the camera couldn't be still. It had to be in there with them. It had to feel like a war zone. And then the music just becomes another part of and describing, and I guess, like, accentuating that tension, or of course that release. Music, just like film, is all about tension and release. You build up to something, and then you kind of let it go. And so, this is the thing about cinema that I love, is that it is a synthesis of sound and images and performance, and writing, right, in just this amazing hybrid, almost like alchemical, magical way.
Yeah.
And so, the music for me, I feel very close to, because I feel so close to the images. I feel like I have to compose the music as well. So I've always composed the music for all of my films. um, and I think it's about understanding what the scene needs so intimately as the director, I don't have to translate it to someone else. So for me, it's all part of the same thinking process. The sounds come as the images are being recorded. You know, it's all happening at the same time.
So the process of composition is during the idea of the movie, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
So
But you're
sometimes,
also composer out
yeah,
of the cinema.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So I do things for orchestras every now and again, and I've done things in the art world. I come from the art world, so I've done things in the art world, working with orchestras and stuff like that. You know, the one of the first pieces of music, Ish's theme, which is when Ish walks home after having said goodbye to Maram. I wrote that piece of music about 4 years ago when I was just starting to write the screenplay. But then there are other pieces of music, like the music that I wrote for the fireworks scene, that came during the edit. So sometimes you hear the music as you're writing, and other times you hear the music as you're editing. And so it's just about being alive to those sounds. When they come, it's just like, okay, I need to go to the studio and write now because this is doing something for me. And then occasionally I would write things in the hotel um, after we'd finished shooting for the day. I'd just be like, I'll just write a few little things
Okay.
when I wasn't falling asleep, you know, because there's a long days, right? But you know, it's what you want to do is just hold on to the energy of something and try and express it in as many ways as you can whilst it's in your body, you know.
Another scene I really enjoy is the when you show the police with the track of the
The
faces.
tracking, yeah, yeah.
How do you get this idea, which is brilliant for me?
It's what they do in real life. I mean, you know, in the UK they have all these new AI-driven camera technologies that can track individuals in a crowd. So it's something that they've been developing probably like all over the world, I think, for many years, and it's now just starting to be used. There's been a real crackdown on protest and direct action in the UK. And this is one of the technologies they use to identify people within a crowd, is this tracking technology. So in a way, it's nothing new. It's nothing new, you know. So what we wanted to do was try and reflect how those boys are seen through the technologies that the police use to watch them.
And my last question
Sure.
is about the black and white.
Hmm.
If you want, you can answer in Italian. So it's going to be a challenge for you.
Oh
It's
God,
an homage to the, of course,
the
Italian
Sika.
neorealism. Yeah,
Yeah,
the Sika. That's what I thought. And so if you want, you can say something about your black and white and
yeah.
your
Well,
Italian in Italian, if you want.
oh gosh. Okay. I
You can.
mean, so the black and white was interesting because one of the things that I do when I'm researching a film is I take thousands of photographs, and sometimes the place that you're in, yes, boys. Sometimes the place that you're in tells you how it wants to be um, visualized. And so there was something about black and white that made Luton feel monumental, made it feel classical, made it feel big. And I wanted Luton, the town, to feel as big to us as an audience as it feels to those boys. You know, in reality, it's a small town, but to them, it feels like a whole universe. And there was something about the black and white that elevated those surroundings to feeling more classical, monumental.
True.
And then to answer your question about the Sika, to answer your question about like neo-realist cinema in Italy, but also parallel cinema in India and kitchen sink cinema in the UK, and even cinema from Romania. There's like there's just such a language of black and white, and so you know you reference Pata Panchali and Bicycle Thieves, you know, the Bill Douglas trilogy, all of these canonical works of social realism. They're all in black and white. 400 Blows, you know.
Yeah.
And so in the end, it felt really natural that we were speaking to those films from the past because they were such a big part of thinking about Ish from the start. E basta così.
Basta così, molto bene.
Grazie.
Grazie e tanti auguri, in bocca al lupo.
Grazie.